Well, there are more devastating scenes coming out of Los Angeles this morning as 5 separate wildfires rage around the city. At least 5 people have been killed and more than 150,000 residents are under evacuation orders, with officials calling the fires the most destructive in LA's history.
Authorities have admitted they were simply not prepared for a catastrophe of this scale and are barely coping as a lack of water seriously hinders firefighting efforts. But there are hopes conditions will ease today. Our North America correspondent Barbara Miller joins us now live from LA. Barb, can you tell us where you are and talk us through what's happening there?
We're near Altadena, and this is where the Eaton fire came through. And in fact, that fire is still burning. Authorities are saying it's not at all contained, but it's done its work, as it were, in this community. This is a community of shops, businesses. There's a school just up here. You can't see the destruction too well right now, but we saw fire crews working on that earlier, and the whole side of the school has been burned. This is what was a home behind me still smouldering, and just before we came on air we saw a fire crew doing a little bit of work here. But you know, it's a mixed picture. I mean, look at this little street library. Like, I mean, it looks so intact that you almost think it was, you know, was put up afterwards, but I can see scorching on the side of it. And some homes here have been saved. Take a look over here at that one. You know, it looks untouched. And there are a number of homes side by side with ones that have been completely destroyed. So the Eden fire, Steph, is the one where we know for sure of 5 deaths. Elsewhere, it's not quite clear. Authorities are saying, you know, that they still have to go in and assess the situation in the worst impacted areas. And there are reports of perhaps at least 1 death in Malibu. That would have been from the Palisades fire, the largest of these blazes down on the ocean front there. As far as that Sunset fire goes, also known as the Hollywood Hills blaze, that was the one that kind of was bearing down on some of the city's most well-known boulevards and sites. That suddenly broke out in the evening local time. But by this morning, the evacuation orders for that area were lifted. And what's happened there is because the winds have died down. I mean, you can see now a very different scene than when we were talking to you 24 hours ago in terms of wind action. And that's allowed the aerial bombardment of some of these blazes. And in some cases, some areas that's, you know, made quite a considerable difference. Authorities now talking in terms of hope that the tide is turning.
Yeah, we spoke last hour to a business owner who lost a restaurant in the Palisades fire, who was scathing of authorities. We're hearing more and more criticism coming out about the response. What have authorities said about that?
Well, I think from the beginning they've been somewhat frank in saying that they weren't prepared for this kind of disaster, for the scale of this. They have also admitted that water availability was a problem. There's certainly a political blame game going on. The President-elect Donald Trump is hitting out at the prominent Democratic governor of California, Gavin Newsom, you know, saying he should sort the state out, just go up and, you know, turn on the tap, essentially. So that's playing out at the political level. As you say, locals who have been impacted are also partly angry. Some saying, you know, why were some areas, you know, attended to by fire crews, but others weren't? A lot of questions to be asked here. We just spoke to one resident here just to get a counterpoint, just to hear that. She wasn't quite as critical of the response.
I don't think this is, I don't know if you were up here, but the winds were like 90 miles an hour. I mean, you can't be prepared for that. You know, what do you do? You're prepared if you don't have a lot of deaths. You know, there's only so much people can do because this is so random, the way it came through.
And Steph, what authorities are saying when asked about these criticisms is We will deal with that. We will have a review. There will be accountability if there needs to be. But they say for the moment, their focus is on protecting lives and trying to contain these still dangerous blazes.
Yeah, much more immediate pressures there. Barbara Miller, great to talk to you.
Back home now, let's get more on that fatal shooting in Melbourne's northwest overnight. Reporter Mietta Adams joins us now from Caroline Springs. Mietta, what's the latest there?
Well, Emma, we do have some developments here. We know now that a 30-year-old man died in that fatal shooting last night here on Hayson Parkway in Caroline Springs. Now, the first reports of gunshots came through at around 10:30 last night, and emergency services arrived on the scene and shortly after found a man with critical injuries, especially to his upper body. He was transported to hospital, but sadly, police say he died shortly after that. But this morning, we've seen plenty of movement from the homicide squad and detectives on the scene as they investigate just what happened here. One of the key pieces of evidence we've seen is some sort of handgun that was lying on the road. Just nearby that was also a number of bullet casings that were marked out with cones, and we've also seen what appears to be some gunshots in the side doors and window of a Golf car behind us. As for the suspect, the police have made no arrests so far this morning, and for all we know right now, that whereabouts and identity of that person is still unknown. But police are urging the public to help them in this investigation. They're asking anyone with dash cam footage, CCTV or any witnesses in the area here in Hayson Parkway last night to please come forward.
Okay, Mietta Adams, thank you.
And now to the other stories making news with Sana.
Thanks, Steph. We're going to return to some extreme weather news to begin with. Parts of Queensland, Tasmania, South Australia, the Northern Territory and Western Australia are roasting under severe heat waves. Those conditions will be considered extreme across areas of Queensland from this weekend. And a warm weekend in Victoria has also prompted the Melbourne City Council to open air-conditioned spaces to people seeking relief from the heat. Overlapping fire seasons in Australia and the US are increasing pressure on firefighting resources, experts warn. The two nations typically exchange crews and equipment, but Australia climate experts say fires are now occurring outside traditional summer periods, requiring year-round efforts in both countries. The warnings come as deadly fires rage around Los Angeles in the middle of winter in the Northern Hemisphere. A fresh showdown is looming between train workers and the New South Wales government as the parties take their pay dispute back to the industrial umpire today. Mediation talks will be held in the Fair Work Commission in a bid to end a months-long deadlock over the train workers' wages. Both sides say they're not yet close to a deal, and commuters have been warned to prepare for delays on the train network from mid-next week. 9 people have been hospitalised in a stable condition after a suspected carbon monoxide poisoning in Hobart on Thursday. Tasmania police say inadequate venting of petrol fumes during concrete cutting may have exposed several people in a Glenorchy building. The invisible gas has no taste and smell and can be lethal in large amounts.
Let's take a quick look at global markets now. Wall Street was closed to observe a national day of mourning for former President Jimmy Carter. Our futures are pointing up though. The Australian dollar is now buying 61.95 US cent. That is another fall. Brent crude is up, gold is down.
The Princess of Wales is celebrating her 43rd birthday today. Prince William has shared a message for Kate, as she's widely known, praising her strength fighting cancer over the past year. The couple withdrew from public life for months after Kate revealed her diagnosis, but they've since returned to their royal duties, albeit a more limited scale for the princess.